Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. He's Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec. Today we have with us Thomas Krause PhD, and he's going to talk about culture change, chaos, all sorts of things. So let me introduce to you Thomas. Thomas is a world-renowned thought leader focused on decision-making, leadership and behaviour in the creation of positive organisational culture. He has designed culture change interventions in the service of the prevention of catastrophic events, fatalities and disasters. He founded Behavioural Science Technology Inc. and is presently chairman of the Krause Bell Group. He's authored 5 books on leadership, patient safety and culture change, including Taking the Lead in Patient Safely and If Your Culture Could Talk, a story about culture change. His articles have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, USA Today, and more. So welcome, Thomas. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we're going to call you Tom. We're going to call you Tom from now on.
Yes, please do. Yep. Nice to be here.
As we always do, we sent Tom some questions, and these are very much general questions about organisations, organisational change. We know that he's got a specific bent towards the patient safety and healthcare industries, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other industries as well and see what he's got to share with us that might be words of wisdom. The first question that we asked, and this is one that has repeatedly come up, and we've talked about core values over the last 10 years. We've talked about organisational culture and culture change. The question that we are often faced with is, are organisational culture and core values the same thing?
So you could argue either way. You could argue that organizational values are the culture of the organization. You could also argue that if you limit your thinking to that one concept, you miss some opportunity to understand the overall culture of the organization better, which positions you to change it. There's a body of research called organizational functioning that identifies a set of variables that are all known to correlate with each other and to predict outcomes, positive outcomes, and to predict the overall culture of the organization. So there are things like upward communication, for example. Mm-hmm. So does information flow freely up through the organization to the senior-most executives?
And then what do they do with it when they get it?
Well, yes, indeed, but they have to get it before they can do anything. So the variable measured is, do I feel free to speak my mind, and will that information flow upward? Mm-hmm. That turns out to just be huge when it comes to safety, well, in performance in general, but in safety in particular. If that information is not, the people, as Deming used to say, the people closest to the work know the most about it. But that information has to flow up. People have to feel free to do it. And unfortunately, in most organizations, there are very strong pressures not to have information flow up. And so it's a huge variable. Another example is perceived organizational support. So I have goals. I'm told to create a certain amount of revenue, to do it with certain quality, to do it safely, to create a culture, and so on. But do I think that I'm given the support that I need to reach that objective? That has been studied extensively. Books have been written about that one variable. And it just is a tremendously important aspect of how an organization gets things done, which is maybe the best definition of culture that is around, how we get things done around here. So that we look at it as a kind of cultural infrastructure, that in the same way that a society needs to have railroads and internet and water and electricity and so on, an organization needs to have this set of variables in good shape, in good working order. And interestingly, there's a lot of variation across organizations on those variables, and even within organizations. So you have 19 factories, and you assess those 5 variables across all 19, you'll find significant variability. So where is the set of values of the organization in that? Well, it's kind of implicit throughout. So it's not wrong to say it's all about values, but if that's all you say, you leave me, the leader, who wants to understand this better so I can lead more effectively and create a certain culture or change the way it is to a better way. If all it is about values, I kind of, well, what am I going to do? What's next? Writing down a bunch of values might make things worse, because after we've written them down and people see them, they see that that's not what we're doing. So it actually goes the wrong direction.
Are we using the wrong words? Is culture the wrong word to be using, or is it overused? And would we be better just saying that we need to develop community?
Maybe another word is climate, and climate has been studied a lot, and it usually is studied as what leadership is paying attention to right now, what is expected and rewarded and supported. And that tends to change in organizations. So we go through a period of years where we have a lot of emphasis on quality, let's say, or a lot of emphasis on safety, for example. The difficulty is that if that climate changes too often, it creates the wrong culture. It creates a culture in which people become cynical. And they say, well, wait, I know they're pushing that now, but don't worry, they won't be pushing it in a year from now.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry too much about it. Just go to the training and you'll get through it. Don't fret over it. So the idea is to create the right climate for whatever it is you're trying to do, and then sustain it long enough for it to become the culture.
In terms of our listening audience, we've got a lot of people who are at the executive end of the scale. They predominantly are on contract, so they're 3 or a 5-year contract for an organisation. Is that really enough time for them to get to know the culture of the role that they're in now, the organisation, and to change it?
I think so. I mean, various people who have studied this have different opinions about that. There are people who think that it takes years and years. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, personally. I think you can change the climate almost instantly. I mean, very rapidly. If I'm a new CEO in an organization and I take a look and I say, gosh, we don't have the engagement of our frontline employees. I can see that already. We just don't. There's this huge gap between levels in the organization, and I want to change that. I can get the climate for that changed very quickly. I mean, a couple of months. And the word gets out very quickly that I think this is important and I'm doing stuff about it and I'm serious about it. Changes are being made that go in that direction. I think the problem is sustaining it long enough for it to become the culture. And how long is that? Well, depends on how complex it is, how big a bite, how big the organization is, what the level you're thinking about is. If it's the CEO and it's a giant multinational organization with a lot of variability and new acquisitions coming in regularly, that's going to be a much more complex project. And probably in that case, the culture of interest isn't the whole company. It's just too big. Probably it's a division or even a site, even a location that is the area of interest that you can sort of get your hands around.
So we do have people listening across the world, particularly the Southeast Asian countries, where we know that their inbred culture in terms of the way they think about work and their role in an organisation is different and they get managed differently. Have you come across that, not so much geographic change, but industry change, let's say, so between the health industry and some other industry, that there's very much a difference in the way they approach culture and culture change?
I think actually there are big differences and big similarities on both. So we were, many years ago when we did the original research on these variables, we were concerned about whether or not it was the same set of variables across geographical areas.
Mm-hmm.
And we studied that, and we found that across areas they were the same variables, but the way they were the way they were talked about and the things that were done in relation to them were different. So, for example, in Asia, upward communication is a different kind of phenomena than it is in North America. In North America, you can talk to your boss directly. You can talk to your boss's boss directly. If the CEO comes to the site, you can talk to the CEO directly. In Asia, there's a more protocol that you're supposed to talk to the right person, and the right person goes up, and that information flows up through a more structured method. But in both cases, it's important that that information flows. Similarly, across industries, it looks different if it's an electronics plant or if it's a construction organization. There are differences, major differences, but there are also similarities. And I guess with respect to the cultural issue, the similarities are bigger than the differences, in my experience.
That's our introduction to Tom Krause. Join us for part 2 and part 3, in fact, of this fascinating discussion, revisiting what we think about in terms of organisational culture and core values and organisational climate and some other terms that we're learning along the way. I'm Kim Bailey, he's Jamie Wadley, and this is Inside Exec.